The sessions, we're experimenting with this format, and every one of the sessions has been amazing, especially the breakouts. And our plan is to make the talks on stage really just provoke the discussions for the breakouts, or have the breakouts then feed into what happens here on stage. And your feedback is very important to us on that. We thank you for it, and actually most people seem to enjoy it. Certainly the session that I participated in was fantastic because we started off arguing but ended up in the same place. All of the sessions are being recorded by high quality audio. You've seen the microphones on the table. That will be used with AI to turn it into insights. And that will be the collective mind insights of what we think the most important topics are. It's very interesting. Last year we fed these into government policy. All we need is a new government so we can feed it into new policy. But apparently we're going to get one soon. So, onwards and forwards. Now on to a very important topic. These technologies do require regulation or supervision in some cases. The next session is regulatory opportunities and threats for an investment strategy. Remembering that what we are all about is understanding how to safely and sustainably invest in these technologies and to build the companies that are going to create the future that we want. So we're very fortunate today to have three speakers, each of whom represent different parts of the ecosystem, both from a geographic sense as well as from an investment and regulatory sense. Please welcome to the stage Chris Jones. Chris Jones, who's the Prime Minister's Deputy Representative for the AI Safety Summit. Suzanne Chisti, Chair and Founder of FinTech Circle, and Ilka Sosdinler, CEO of United Payments. There is an order. Sorry, I should have said there is an order. Oh, yeah, that's good. You're in the right spot. Thank you. Well, thank you all very much. Let me just get to my questions. Please hold. Your call is important. Hi.
Hello.
Did any of you have lunch?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. The grab and bag lunch boxes, I think, were a big hit. It just makes it easier to meet. Last year, we did the event at the beautiful King's Place. I mean, it's an amazing, magnificent venue. But we found it was very hard to find spaces where people could just meet and have a chat. So this seems to work very well for us. A big thank you to the Northeastern University. Just a quick word on Northeastern University. The thing they love more than anything else is partnerships with companies that can provide opportunities for their students. We've met some of the students today here. They're amazing. They're studying things like AI ethics. They'll soon be working with you, Chris, in the FCDO in helping understand the way forward, I'm pretty sure. So if you have any opportunities for Northeastern, those are work experiences, job placements, or potential partnerships, please go and see the Northeastern team. Go and see that man, way above. Yeah, go and see that man there, and he will explain the way forward for that. So when we're thinking about regulatory opportunities and threats, we put together a panel who represent many different sides of it, but geographic risk and the opportunities and threats. But because there's an election, almost all of our government-related speakers cancelled, except for Chris. And Chris has a huge responsibility being the government's representative for the AI Safety Summit, deputy for the AI Safety Summit. So thank you for being here. It's such an important topic. Everybody needs to understand it. The fact that you've made yourself accessible is very helpful to us. But actually, I'd like to start by asking each of you to do a brief introduction. Suzanne, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. I'm Suzanne Chisti. I am the founder and the chair of FinTech Circle. And FinTech Circle, we are an early-stage investor network, so we're a group of angel investors, and we invest our own money into FinTech startups. And we also help to grow them with our 250,000 audience, the FinTech Circle community. And I'm also on the board of 2 listed companies as a non-executive director.
Thank you. Ilka, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, this is İlker. I'm the CEO and founder of United Payment. United Payment is one of Turkey's largest fintechs, operating in 7 countries. We are doing a lot of stuff, money remittance, prepaid cards, etc. So happy to be here.
Honestly, mate, you need an agent. He's got 15 million customers across that. That's a huge amount of responsibility. 7 different regulatory territories. I mean, it's quite an impressive. So actually, very, very good person to come and talk about this. And Suzanne, 250,000 people now in FinTech. So that's just an incredible community. So thank you for coming. So Chris, please introduce yourself and tell us, how did you become also the Prime Minister's Deputy Representative for the AI Safety Summit?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And look, I'm delighted to be here, so thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me along. Though I am slightly worried that if I'm the only civil servant who has committed to doing this, I'm probably not going to be a civil servant for much longer. So I'm a diplomat. My real job is I work for the Foreign Office in the UK. But by background, I'm an engineer. So my degree is in artificial intelligence and robotics, and I spent most of my life building robots, coding and machine learning, before running BAE's advanced tech research business for a while. But at the point where technology really started to become a core part of what governments needed to worry about, and when it started to affect geopolitics, I was invited to come into the government and help work out how we address that. How did I become the Prime Minister's Deputy Representative on AI Safety Summits? I probably didn't duck quickly enough when people ask for volunteers, and people often ask me what the role of is of a deputy representative. But I became that representative because the Prime Minister last year felt really strongly that we needed to have this summit, that we needed to bring people together, and that we needed a diplomatic focus to try and encourage the right people into the room. So I was the natural choice.
Just want to dwell on that a little bit, because it was not without its controversy, right? It was particularly notable that the UK took a lead. Personally, I think it's a great thing for the UK to take a lead in doing, because, I mean, a lot of the world relies on the origins of like UK law and things like that. So I think that was a good thing. But I think the controversy came that the Prime Minister invited China to join as well. And actually, when you think about it, it's logical. Why would you not, if you're going to talk about AI safety? But it wasn't without its controversy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always difficult as a diplomat to invite different competing parties into the room to have the conversation, but that doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it the wrong thing to do. And I think particularly on a subject like AI, there is no credible international conversation without China in the room. By any measure, they are the world number 2 when it comes to developing that type of technology. So if you pretend to have a properly inclusive international conversation without them there, you're not really doing the job. There's always the tension as well about whether they will actually come if you invite them, and whether they will participate. And those of you who were aware of the summit and followed it will know that we had a really tough time in the press as we got there, and most of the press in the UK were telling us it would be a disaster. But I think the proudest moment that most of us had was The Guardian on the evening of the summit saying that it was a diplomatic coup to have China, the US, the UK.
The Guardian
EU.
saying that is
exactly. I mean, I will take a diplomatic coup any day of the week.
Yeah, well done. I think you're quite right, and they participated, and they signed the accord, I think.
Pledge declaration.
Pledge, that's right, which I think was a great thing to do. That's the kind of thing. Can I just say that I'm feeding back into government? That is the kind of actually hands across the water initiatives that we want to see more of. So thank you for coming and sharing, because I think it's very important. So Ilkka, I'd like to go to you next. The challenges in going into markets where what you do in financial services is not even yet regulated in some cases. Mm-hmm. You're part of even creating standards there, and then successfully operating safely a business of the nature you do. It must be huge. Can you take us through, firstly, where you started, and then how you expanded, and what were the regulatory challenges?
Sure, let me give you a brief info about that, Eric. So we started in Turkey, so we became one of the first e-money license holder companies in Turkey. Then we did these partnerships with big names like Wise, TransferGo, Remitly. So we started to work with these guys in Turkey. Then since Turkish operations went very well, they wanted us to extend it to the region. So unfortunately, in the countries that we operate in, there is no passporting like EU. So we have to go to each central bank and get licenses. Sometimes there is no even regulation in the countries which we go in. So we have to go sit with the central banks, get special permissions sometimes, and sometimes help with the regulation, tell them what's going good in Turkey and not. So currently, a few weeks ago, we became the first license holder in Azerbaijan also.
Huge market, right?
Yeah, it's a huge market also. So they just issued 2 licenses. We were the first one. We are in Georgia, Uzbekistan, Romania, UK, we just did a small acquisition also. Now we are looking very actively in African market as well. On CIS, we will continue expanding in also. So, but on the countries which we operate, other than AI, there are a lot of difficulties. It's the on-solid rule, so it's not possible to use the cloud computing. So in every country we go in, we have to go invest to servers, storage, etc. So we are setting our own infrastructure. So, and maybe in the future it will change, but I don't think it will be happening on the middle term. AI part, we don't receive a lot of questions on that, Eric. So, but interestingly, UAE, last week they asked which AI programs and what do we use.
Really?
Yeah.
So the first regulator asking you that question?
Yes. It was the first time. I was surprised also.
Wow.
But yeah, this is there are a lot of challenges, but opportunities are coming with it also.
I see an opportunity for a conference on regulation, on AI regulation for regulators. I think it would be a great idea. But it's good that they're starting to ask these kind of questions.
Yeah.
Because there are parts of law in the UK, for example, such as transparency and protecting consumers, where, for example, if you make a lending decision based on an AI model, you have to be able to prove how you came to that conclusion, right? So the protection of society is, I think, an important part of it. But as I say, it's so early in all of this that understanding it's quite important. Suzanne, I wanted to ask you about something I think we disagree on, which is good, which is the AI, the EU AI Act. Tell us what you think about it first. Rather, I won't put words in your mouth. Tell us what you think about it.
Yes. I mean, I would say in terms of startups, all our startups use AI and we invest in AI companies. And the question always is a regulation, how can you get a regulation right so that you don't stifle innovation, but that you actually support innovation, and that you give a certain clear framework to both investors but also to entrepreneurs in how they can operate in. And the EU AI Act, which you mentioned, Eric, has tried to do that. So they have classified AI risks in 4 categories. The top category is the one which is not allowed. So when you think about biometric screening of people, that you're not allowed to put facial recognition on the public roads and then take photos of everybody and use it for whatever purpose, it's just not allowed at all. And then in this pyramid, what is allowed is classified in 3 categories. One is high risk, one is medium risk, and one is low risk. So if you do a high-risk activity, for example, if you screen, because we're here at the university, then if you screen applications from university graduates for jobs, and you use AI to do that, that's a high-risk activity, because you want to make sure that you do it fairly, that you don't have any bias against gender or against ethnic minorities. And so this would be a high-risk classification. And if you want to do that, you need to get it approved and certified that it works and it does not have any gender or any biases in it, for example. And so it's like in the medical field, when you launch a medicine, it gets approved, it gets made sure that it's safe before it is released. If you're in the middle risk category, then you need to ensure that it's transparent. So when we talk about the consumer talking, via chatbots to companies, that if you talk to an AI-generated chatbot, you know as a consumer that you're talking with AI and that there's no other person behind you. So it's about transparency, but otherwise it is of course permitted, but it's fair to the consumer to know who you are. And then the lowest risk, which is kind of the low-risk AI applications, it's about a code of conduct, to make sure that the behavior is appropriate, but there's no permission required or no approval required.
I suppose I think we can agree is that certainty is what investors love.
Definitely.
And also startups, because they can build to a standard. My fear is a bit like what happened with the Dodd-Frank Act in the US, in that it was put together in a hurry and they've spent a decade or so, fixing it. Because once it's in place, it's hard to sort of undo regulations, whereas I think the UK's approach has been different. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I need to be slightly careful on this because I don't want to comment too much on what the current government does or prejudge what a successor government would do. But I think when it comes to regulation, there are probably three things to think about. So the first is, what are you trying to achieve through the regulation? And in the UK, along with other countries, the approach that we will generally take under any party is that we need to make things safe, but not stifle innovation. Because a technology like AI has huge benefits in a range of different scenarios. It has some risks. We need to protect against the risks, but allow ourselves to exploit the benefits. So that's thing one. Thing two is, what is the role of government in regulation? And in a technology like AI, we have to be really honest with ourselves. There's an expertise asymmetry. Governments do not do this well. We don't understand the technology. So the best types of regulation happen when governments and the private sector and academia work together to develop the regs. And then the final thing is, what type of regulatory model do you want to adopt? And if you look across the world on AI, there is a spectrum. On the one end of the spectrum, you have the US, where there is not a lot of regulation. At the other end of the spectrum, you have a country like China, where you have to get a license to even develop an AI model. In the middle, you have blocks like the EU and the current UK position. So I think there will be choices over the course of the next 5 to 10 years about which models become prevalent. There will always be local variation, but what is that general standard that the world will adopt?
I don't know if you're allowed to say this, but have the Labour Party made a statement yet on their position on this?
Yep, so I can. This is a statement of fact. So Peter Kyle, who's currently the DSIT, so Department for Science, Innovation and Technology Shadow Secretary, did a speech at London Tech Week a couple of weeks ago, which some of you may have heard. But he said very clearly that they wanted to do two things. So the first was they wanted to take the AI Safety Institute and put it on a statutory footing, so that rather than it being voluntary for companies to provide large language models for pre-deployment testing, it would become mandatory. So that's kind of one thing they said they would like to do. The second is they would like to look really seriously at EU regulation. How do we work closer with this massive block on our doorstep to align regulatory models? Doesn't mean they will be the same, but to align them and to ensure that people out there have got a fighting chance of being able to do things once and it fitting into the right regulatory regimes.
Interesting. Harmonization with EU law. Anyone would think we should be part of the EU. Moving on. So from an investor's perspective in the last few minutes, Ilkka, help us think about, when you're looking at investing, what's the investor's perspective that you look at when investing, when you think about the regulatory side of things?
Are you asking about investing to a country or to the M&As that we are talking
It's a
about?
good point. Let's do the M&As first, because you've done quite a few.
Yeah, in last 2 years we did around 11 M&As.
11.
Yes, so
How big is your M&A team to do that?
4 people, but we are
Just
working.
4?
Yeah, but we are working with a lot of consultant companies
Oh, I
in
see.
order to
Okay.
do those as well. Yeah. We are looking at how it's going to support our current growth. So those organic acquisitions are helping us a lot. On AI side, we haven't invested yet. We are going a little bit slow. So because sometimes we invest to technology companies as well, other than licensed companies. So on the fraud side, we did some acquisitions. Loyalty side, we did some acquisitions. But on AI side, we want to take things slower. We very deeply looked at LLMs, and we said it doesn't make for us to invest into LLMs. So we are looking for the applications more. So on the countries that we go into, so it's important to who we are investing, who are we getting the shares from, etc. All those kind of compliance stuff is also important for us, Eric.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Well, we don't have a lot of time left, so I wanted to ask each of you, if you were, maybe I'm not allowed to ask this question, I'm going to give it a try anyway. If you were advising, because you're the FCDO, which is non-political, right? So we're at the behest of whoever is elected, so just so people understand. So they do ask, though, advice. If you were then asked to advise any new government of what they should do to encourage this active balance between innovation and protection, from everything you've learned, what would your main policy thrust suggestion be?
Yeah, so I was
How
hoping
much of this can you
I was
answer?
hoping I might get this question last. So I think a couple of things I would say. So the first is work out exactly what you're trying to achieve and focus on that first. So what are you most worried about? Are you worried about innovation or stifling innovation, or protecting against harms first? Because those two have a different way through it. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second is don't pretend that you know all the answers. So you need to engage a range of different views, and that's partly why at Bletchley Park last year we had industry, governments, civil societies, academics, the media in the room, because we knew that it needed a diverse range of views. And then the final thing I'd say is don't try and do all of this as a single country. I would say this as a diplomat, wouldn't I? But go and talk to your friends. Go and talk to people you don't agree with, because that will help test your views and ensure that you're knocking the rough edges off anything that's going to see the light of day.
Amazing. I'm afraid we don't really have any time, and we've got a fabulous panel that I can't wait to get to as well. But please put your hands together with this amazing panel. Thank you so much for contributing. Please do stay if you can and join the breakouts after.